How do you say Merry Christmas in Portuguese? Feliz Natal. Today on Valley the Dolly. So I wanted to take a moment and talk about what Christmas is like in Portugal compared to what it's like in the United States. Because a lot of times people will ask when we go back to the United States, is it different in Portugal? Do they celebrate differently? What do they eat that's different than what they eat in the United States? So we're going to go through all of that. And at the end, stick around because we're going to talk about what is the difference between how much Americans spend on Christmas gifts versus how much Portuguese spend on Christmas gifts. If you're wondering what a common greeting is for people in the holiday seasons, you know, in the United States, often you'll hear people say happy holidays, especially if they're celebrating Jewish holidays as well as Christian holidays. And it'll be kind of a generic or holdover term that'll cover New Year's and Christmas as well. So here, a lot of times what you'll hear is Boa Festas, which is happy holidays. And that's kind of the similar season's greetings that you would hear in the United States. So every year that we celebrate Christmas here, we always go around the city and look at all the beautiful Christmas lights because Lisbon is renowned for having beautiful displays of Christmas decorations throughout the city, and it's really beautiful to go around and view those. The other thing that they're really renowned for are the Christmas markets. Now, when you think of Christmas markets in Europe, the most common ones that are thought of are really the ones that are in Germany and Northern Europe, and that's absolutely true. They're really phenomenal, and a couple of years ago we were in London for Christmas, and London has an absolutely phenomenal Christmas scene as well. But Lisbon has its own unique special attraction, and it hosts a number of Christmas markets all around the city. The first one you might have heard of, or the first one that we'll talk about because it is really, I think, probably the biggest, is Wonderland. And that's held in Parque Eduardo. That's right off Avenue de Liberdade in the center of the city. And this has a gigantic Ferris wheel. It has an ice rink. It has over 60 booths that are set up. And they do everything from sell you waffles and hot chocolate, wine and Thai food and burgers. And they also have gifts specifically for Christmas, a lot of slippers, hats, scarves, and they sell nuts and fruits and lots of different things that are really appropriate for the season. And it's really a great experience to have that when you're prepping for Christmas. It's very Christmassy in that atmosphere. Another one is the Rocio Christmas Market. And the difference is Wonderland is open even past the New Year's. I think it's until January 3rd or 5th, where the Rocio Christmas Market, that closes on the 21st. So it's done just before Christmas. And the Rocio Christmas Market is right down in Rocio Square. This is really, these have the traditional booths again that are set up with vendors selling things that are specific to Christmas. Again, a lot of food, a lot of different gift ideas, and it's a beautiful way of just wrapping yourself in Christmas as you're down in central Lisbon shopping for Christmas. Let's talk about some of the different foods that are served in Portugal and how they differ from what you would find for a Christmas meal in the United States. So in the United States, for us, I grew up as in Minnesota as a Missouri Synod Lutheran, and my parents always took us to what was a 9 p.m. church service on Christmas Eve, which meant that it didn't leave a lot of time for a huge meal on Christmas Eve, so that wasn't really our primary meal. On Christmas Eve in Portugal, they have what's known as a consoada, and the consoada is the Christmas Eve dinner. And this is traditionally, most commonly, and this can vary region to region around the country, but the most common dish here is bacalhau for Christmas Eve. And this is done with a combination of bacalhau, which is a salted cod, and it takes a couple days to prepare that salted cod so that it can be cooked for Christmas Eve. And then it's served with boiled potatoes, eggs, and cabbage. That is the traditional Portuguese Christmas Eve dinner. For the Christmas Day meal, you'll have a couple of different options. One of the most popular is batrito asado, and this is an oven-roasted lamb that's served with roasted potatoes, which I think sounds fantastic. When I grew up in the United States, commonly we would have ham as the Christmas dinner because we would usually have goose or turkey on Thanksgiving, and we wouldn't repeat that same meal then again on Christmas Day. So we would usually have ham. So I think roasted lamb sounds incredible. Another one is Peru, and this is called Peru recheado. And Peru recheado is turkey, and it's turkey stuffed with vegetables and other optional kind of vegetable ingredients that would go along with it. So turkey or lamb, and I'm sure a lot of people do beef here as well. Those are kind of traditional Christmas Day meals that a lot of people opt for. Another option for Christmas lunch is what they call rupa vela, and this is really taking all of those bacalhau ingredients from Christmas Eve and mixing them together and serving them, which is the cabbage, the eggs, and the vegetables, and covering it with a healthy dose of olive oil and serving that as a Christmas Day lunch. So maybe you do that for lunch and then you have the lamb for dinner. And in Portugal, it's very quiet on Christmas Day. It doesn't tend to be a day, I think, where people commonly go out to movies like they do in the United States, that kind of thing. It tends to be very much stay at home with your close family. So you see very few cars out on the road, very little activity on Christmas Day itself, because it really is kind of a stay-at-home day here. If you're looking for a common Portuguese Christmas dessert, the first one is called bolo rei. And bolo rei is a fluffy cake that's been filled with fruits and nuts, and it's traditionally eaten on the 25th, and then also on King Day, which is January 6th, and we'll get into what King Day is as well. Another one that's very common here is a rice pudding, and that's called arroz doce, and this is a sweet rice recipe that's made from rice that's been slowly cooked with sweet milk and then topped with cinnamon. And there is a third one, and this one is one that I find particularly interesting and something that I really like, which is called rabanadas. And this is very similar to French toast. The Portuguese rabanadas is a fried bread coated with sugar and cinnamon. And again, these are very common desserts. Now, in the United States, generally, where I grew up in Minnesota, we would usually have apple pie or pumpkin pie or blueberry pie, or probably all three. My family was probably just very pie oriented, which is why we always had pie at Christmas, as opposed to cakes or other kinds of dessert. But there are some really interesting desserts here as well in Lisbon that you would definitely want to try. And another thing that really kind of sets Lisbon apart from my experience in the United States is what they do at the Ritz in Lisbon, which is Christmas tea. And this is filled with a lot of really wonderful cakes and desserts that are served at the tea time. And it's a great experience just to go to the hotel. You are kind of ushered into this large lounge area, and they bring over just a great assortment of desserts for you to try, and cakes and different things along with tea. And it takes up a better part of your afternoon, but it's a very relaxing way of breaking up the day, and something that I did once, and I would love to go back and do that again. So after the big meal on Christmas Eve, it's very traditional here in Portugal to head off to a midnight mass, since Portugal is overwhelmingly Catholic. And in that midnight mass, it's also named the Missa de Galo, which is the rooster mass. And I think that it comes right at midnight. And this mass takes place at midnight, and then you're done probably a little around 1 o'clock in the morning, which again, probably means that a lot of people are opening a lot of their gifts on Christmas Eve here, because Christmas Eve becomes the big event night, and there is a lot of time there to fill between the dinner, opening gifts, and then heading off to Mass. And then, of course, once you get home after 1 o'clock in the morning, you probably want to sleep in late on Christmas Day. And so that takes some of the pressure off opening gifts and stuff early in the morning then. So at the end of the Christmas season, and the end of Christmas is referred to as Dia dos Reis, this is January 6th on the calendar. And traditionally, this is when you would probably take down your Christmas tree and mark this as the end of the Christmas holiday. Now, a lot of people have begun to keep their Christmas trees up until the end of January, so that's not necessarily always the case, but traditionally here, January 6th is the end of the Christmas season, and that's how it's marked. This is celebrated because the three wise men made their way to visit baby Jesus on January 5th. It's also very traditional on this last day of Christmas to have a meal similar to what you would have on Christmas Eve, to celebrate that again with your family. Now, when it comes to shopping, we know Americans are gold standard champions of mass shopping for Christmas. And I think there are very few countries that really can compete with Americans when it comes to spending on Christmas gifts. Now, Christmas spending, according to the last surveys that were done, it apparently is over $1,000 that the average person in the United States will spend on Christmas gifts. Now, this compares to about 200 euros per person for what the average person in Portugal will spend. So Christmas gifts are still very important here. In Portugal, there is a tradition of providing the 13th month of income or an additional month of income for Christmas. So in December, you get 2 months of income, which is very different in the United States. You might get a Christmas bonus or a year-end bonus from your job if you have a salaried position. But here they provide what is known as the 13th, well, what's referred to as the additional Christmas or 13th month of salary, right? And this is related to Christmas. And a lot of this is to support the purchase of Christmas gifts and Christmas activity at the end of the year. Christmas gifts, because it's become very focused on gifting, and compare that to what the Portuguese spend on Christmas gifts, because Christmas gifts here are still really important. But it is a much quieter Christmas season. People traditionally spend Christmas Day at home. They're not out going to movies, etc. It's much more of a family-oriented affair. In Portugal, they do something that I think is really fantastic. They give an extra month's paycheck at the end of the year, and part of that is to support Christmas and people's purchase of Christmas gifts and celebration of the holiday. In the United States, traditionally, you may, if you are a salaried employee at a company, you may be given a potential bonus every year at the end of the year, depending on how well the company is doing. But that's very different than receiving an extra month's salary at the end of the year to support your Christmas purchases, because you have the midnight mass and you have spending time alone with your family, and a lot of those things become the primary focus of Christmas and less about the actual dollar amount that people are spending on Christmas gifts. This is Ted at Valley of the Dolly. I hope you like this content. If you do, please hit the like and subscribe button, and I look forward to talking with you soon. Thank you. Bye now.